What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? AJ Good here at the House of Masks, where we unbox and review cool shit almost every single day, and today's video is yet another installment of the new series, The Definitive Slipknot Mask History. This is the series where I am setting out to catalog every single Slipknot mask used by every single Slipknot member. And yeah, at first, we're knocking out the OG band. That'll be Sid through Corey. Then we're going to be working on some new members, and then we're going to be working on some ex-members. And today's video is going to be an ambitious one because we are doing Clown.
I'm the Clown, number 6. I play percussion.
So let's not waste any time. Let's jump on into this. We're going to be starting with Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat. Alright, so I've got two things to mention really quick before we get into this list. One is, as always, a huge shout out to Nico's website, slipknothistory.com. It definitely makes these videos a lot easier, and if you're into this type of content, then you are absolutely going to love slipknothistory.com, so I will be dropping the link down below in the description of this video. Make sure to head over there and check it out. It's constantly getting updated, so there's always something new to see. And the second thing is that there is a mask from the Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat era that I cannot show you guys. So I will just let you know that it does exist. It is a Killer Clown style mask that Clown wore over his West G, but I cannot show you. I have been vowed to secrecy. Unfortunately, there are some guys that just like to keep this stuff a secret. They showed some friends of mine. The friends of mine showed them to me under the circumstances that I wouldn't post about it or put it in this video, but just hang tight because I'm sure, as always, that type of stuff is going to leak in the future. There is definitely footage of it being used. I saw the screen caps. I've never actually seen the footage, but it's out there. Clown wore a Killer Clown mask over his West German Clown, and that brings us to the West German Clown. This is the Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat era, so we're just going to be looking at Clown's basic mask. Really not too much to say about it. There wasn't a whole lot changed, and clearly it did weather through the Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat cycle. Clown also did some little random stuff like wear a Christmas hat with it, but like I mentioned in previous videos, headgear that doesn't really affect the mask itself shouldn't really be included on these lists. Now, a mask over these masks or something that does actually change the mask itself should be included, but a Santa Claus hat doesn't really change the mask. It's just a Santa Claus hat, so that's the reason I'm not including it. And since this list was so quick, we're gonna go ahead and jump right on into the self-titled era. Now, obviously, Clown stuck with his original West German mask, but we can already see some huge differences from the Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat cycle to the first images of the self-titled version of the Clown. Here during Ozfest, we can already see that there is some slight stitching going on, and clearly a lot more weathering than in the past, and this just continues through the cycle. We get more and more stitching around the mouth area, the eyebrows start to disappear, and a lot of the paint is starting to fade. Approaching the mid-self-titled era, we start to see that Clown has repainted his eyebrows. As you can see, they are completely black, and of course there is more stitching on the mask. Here we can see that there is a lot of stitching added down around the neck area. Further into the mid self-titled era, we see what I've always referred to as the lipstick clown. I found this version of the clown mask on a poster way back in the day, and I've always had some weird infatuation with it. And after my own personal 365-day clown project Stinky, shout out to the real House of Mask fans that know what I'm talking about, I have come to the conclusion that this isn't lipstick on the mask, it is Sharpie. I Sharpied the lips on Stinky quite a few times, and it had the exact same effect that you see in this picture here. Obviously they are coated in red, but you can still see the previous versions of the red and the skin tone on the lips underneath, and the normal red Sharpie that I was using on my Stinky the Clown gave the exact same translucent but red effect. Shout out to Nico, who's actually converting a West G into one of these versions for me as we speak. Next up, well into the mid self-titled era, we have Clown's mask with an oxygen mask on top. And while there isn't that much footage or video of Clown using this oxygen mask, he did do it pretty often in the mid self-titled era. Personally, I think this is super cool and clearly deserves a spot on the list. Continuing on the mask on a mask trend, we've got Clown with a surgical mask over his face. Once again, as I mentioned in the Jim Root video a couple videos back, it wasn't uncommon for certain members to do this in Japan, and not only do we see it in the self-titled era here, but we're also going to come back to it during the Iowa cycle. Now into the late self-titled era, we can clearly see that the mask has definitely seen better days. I've seen better days. Almost all of the red on the mask is completely gone. It looks like the cheeks barely have any red, the nose is pretty red but still has a lot of fading, and the lips are just completely flesh tone, and even a lot of the eyebrow paint and the whites on the mask are completely gone. As you can see, those teeth almost have no white left over. And soon after this look, we would get the Dynamo Clown, which featured a lot of finger painting by Clown with probably just some acrylic paints. Definitely a very messy paint job, but it got the job done, and it definitely gave the Clown mask a different look than it had ever had before. Again, another uncommon version comes right after Dynamo, and that's just going to be called the Post Dynamo, kind of looking like a woodchuck or something. But we've got some leftover remnants of the Dynamo show, and a lot of fading on certain areas like parts of the green on the eyebrows. Now this is the last time that we would see the original self-titled Clown mask in use. We would see photos of it randomly posted later in Clown's career but never worn again, and that brings us to the Tattoo the Earth Clown. The debut of the Tattoo the Earth actually comes from the same exact photo shoot and show as the last photo that we saw of the post-Dynamo Clown, and this is the first mask that Clown ever had made for him by a professional. Over the course of this copy of the Tattoo the Earth Clown's career, we would start to see it losing hair. Here we've got a weird mullet version that barely has any hair left on, which leads us into the completely bald version, which is definitely my all-time favorite Clown mask and probably my all-time favorite Slipknot mask in general. The bald version would go through some different stages. Here we see it completely normal, but next we see it with some blood, which is super fucking rad. I wish that better photos and videos of this existed, but sadly they do not. And this bloody version leads us into the next one, which was just stained with fake blood. Obviously this version just features blood that was not wiped off from the last show. There's no fresh drips or anything like that, so everything that we have here is just the remnants of one of those blood shows. Ooh, bloodshows.com. Do you guys remember that website? Next up, we see a different copy of the Tattoo the Earth Clown. This is actually the Bolt Hawk version, and this wasn't actually used during the Tattoo the Earth tour. This one was actually used after Tattoo the Earth for the World Domination tour. This was definitely a nice addition to Clown, and I think that it fit the era perfectly, and the Tattoo the Earth sculpt in particular is one of my all-time favorite sculpts. I think that it is just one of the best sculpts in the world. It just seems to capture like the perfect moment of madness on someone's face, and I really, really dig that. Alright, so last but not least, we have the Homemade Clown, and a lot of people are probably thinking that this should come during the Volume 3 era, but it was actually given to Clown by a fan during the self-titled era, and it was not only used on stage as a prop. Clown would put it on the end of his lead pipe and come out on stage during the beginning of a show. Clown would swap this with his regular West German Clown and head out towards the crowd and do the whole crowd love thing where they get to touch him over the barricade and he can touch them. So yeah, just a nice bit of information there that a lot of people probably don't know. And this will wrap it up for the self-titled era. With the first two record cycles out of the way, let's take a trip to Iowa and see what it has to offer. Alright, buckle the fuck up because this one's about to get a little more complicated than you're probably thinking. There are technically way more variations of the Iowa Clown than even I realized until I hopped on this website. So, in no particular order, here we have an Iowa Clown, and here we have an Iowa Clown, here we have an Iowa Clown, here we have an Iowa Clown. Next up we have an Iowa Clown. Here's the left behind Iowa Clown. Here you can see an Iowa Clown. Here's an Iowa Clown. Next up, we've got an Iowa Clown. Here we have an Iowa Clown with a surgical mask over the mouth. And like I mentioned earlier in this video, Clown was known to wear these in Japan as well as Jim, which I also mentioned in Jim's definitive mask history video. And as you can see here to accompany the pic, we also have some footage of Clown wearing this live. Next up, we have an Iowa Clown, followed by a heavily weathered Iowa Clown. Next up, we have a rare one. This is the red-nosed Iowa Clown. This mask was also worn in Japan, but only for one show and some photo shoots. Here's the red-nosed clown with another surgical mask on top, and we not only have some blood on the surgical mask, but we also have the word death written in kanji. Next up, we've got the Disaster Pieces Iowa Clown. Here's another variation of the Iowa Clown. And now finally, we have a West German Clown on the list again. Here we have the Redding Clown mask. So just a fun fact, this mask was actually acquired by Clown from a fan during the self-titled era. There's actually footage of Clown asking the guy to give him the mask. I'm not sure what sort of deal they worked out, but Clown did end up getting the mask, and you can also see it present in some shots during the self-titled era on the side stage. So while it is not technically a self-titled Clown mask because we never saw Clown wear it during the self-titled era, it was present during the self-titled era, and here we see it later during Iowa. This mask also went through some changes, such as some sort of weird black paint being smeared randomly on the mask, and then probably its most infamous look, the Freddy vs. Jason premiere, where it was smeared with fake blood. When you think of this mask, you either think of the Freddy vs. Jason premiere or the Reading/Leeds Festival, but it was also used for some other random stuff here and there, like a Volume 3 promo interview shot for MTV2. Now, this is going to be the last mask that we see for Iowa, and I know that a bunch of people are going to try to call me out for not using that weird brained tattoo the earth, but listen here, mother truckers, that isn't a mask, it is a foam-filled prop. Yes, that's right, that brain tattoo the earth was completely foam-filled, it was never worn by clowns, so technically it's not a mask and we cannot count it on this list. And with that being said, onward! With the first 3 record cycles out of the way, we are on to Volume 3, which is actually a little more interesting than you might think. From the time that Volume 3 came out all the way up until around last year, I found this album cycle to be extremely boring and unoriginal and just not very interesting. But after doing some research last year, more and more stuff started to come out, and I realized that there actually were quite a few different variations of Clown's mask on this album cycle. So let's see if there's more than you think. After all, that is what this series is about. So without further ado, Volume 3. Alright guys, so to kick off the Volume 3 Clown list, we're going to start with the most basic version. I believe that this was the actual concept that Clown was going for most of the time, and a lot of the changes that you're going to see on this list just came as they came. Certain things that Clown didn't actually set out to do and just either got caught in the moment or added to the mask later on. You guys know how it goes, but we're going to be starting off with the basic Volume 3 Clown mask. This mask was essentially just a latex version of a bandaged clown, and Clown would add actual bandages over the mask every night with some fake blood added to those as well. And the concept is actually pretty cool because it does come straight from the Iowa era. You can still see the cut across the nose that would have been present on the Iowa clown mask from the pentagram being carved into Clown's face. Now, most of the time with the Volume 3 masks, we would see an open head so the Clown's longer hair could come out, and that's just about it. It was just a really simple bandaged clown concept. And as we move through, you guys will start to see some of the different changes that we found over the years. Now, here we have the Houdini Mansion promo shot version, and this is actually known as the tumor Volume 3 Clown because, as you can see, it's got a rather large tumor on the top of the head there. This mask was full head, and you can actually see a tube running from Clown's mouth up into the mask, and that is how he inflated the tumor. He would put the little straw in his mouth and blow into it, and that would inflate or pulsate the tumor, and it actually took us quite a while to realize what was actually going on here. I always thought back in 2004 when these came out that was just a cigarette hanging out of Clown's mouth, but thanks to the geniuses in the Slipknot mask community, we've actually figured out exactly what was going on, and you can actually buy a replica of this version with a tube from Drop Bear Studios down in Australia. Next, we have the basic full head version. This is the same exact style as the last with the full head and the gash on top, but it doesn't have the straw or the inflatable tumor. Next up, we have yet another full head version, but this one actually has bandage fasteners. So you can see that all of the gauze are wrapped around Clown's face, but you can see these silver bandage fasteners that are kind of holding the bandages in place. And this is actually the only shot that I know of that features these. I also believe this was probably one of the last to be discovered. Here we have the Grammy Awards 2005 version. This is yet another full head bandage version with some very different blood than we've ever seen before. The blood definitely looks very old, and it's more of a dark crimson color rather than a bright red fresh blood color, and there is a lot of blood on this mask. Next up, we have another basic Volume 3 clown mask. This one obviously has the top of the head cut out, but this one actually had sculpted on painted bandages rather than being wrapped with actual bandages. Typically when Clown would wrap one of his masks, you wouldn't really be able to see what was going on or the sculpted bandages because the mask was flat black, meaning literally the only thing on it that was painted was the nose. This one we can actually see that the latex sculpted bandages have been painted white, along with the nose and some shadowing around the eyes and mouth area. Next up, we have a partially wrapped mask. As you can see, a lot of the black face is sticking out. This is what I mentioned on the last one. Whereas the bandages were painted on the last one, they aren't painted on this one. So all we have to go off of is the actual real bandages that have been wrapped around Clown's mask. Once again, this is a full head version and one of the most recent to be discovered. Here we have one that I honestly don't really know what's going on. Clearly, it is the raw latex mask. There are no bandages put over it, but the paint job on this is super, super weird. It is seen very briefly in the Liminal DVD, and it's really gross looking. I don't really know what is happening with this. Even the nose itself has this weird raw fleshy look, so this one's a mystery to me, guys. Here we have a blank Volume 3 clown mask with only the eyes cut out. As you can see, this one does not have the mouth cut out. Definitely seems to be a raw latex pull. As you can see, a lot of talcum powder still on the mask itself, and again, this was only seen in one photo prior to a show, so I'm guessing that Clown probably cut the mouth out after this photo was taken. Here we have a Japanese version of Clown's Volume 3, and this one always always reminded me of a ninja, not only for the obvious Japanese headband that Clown is wearing, which says Fighting Spirit, but also because he's got the bandages wrapped over the nose and the mouth, so it gives it kind of a hidden face thing. Next up, we have another extremely bloody version, and this one actually has the nose covered with bandages as well, but not the mouth. And of course, we gotta have a death mask on the list because Clown clearly wore a death mask with the rest of his bandmates during the Volume 3 cycle. And I say this in every single episode, there's not a lot that I can tell you guys about these that you don't already know. These were used for some promo stuff at the Houdini Mansion, and they were also used in the Vermilion music videos, as well as some live performances of Vermilion. The entire band would swap out their masks for their death masks while playing that song. Next up, we've got the 2006 Grammy West German Clown mask. And just a little fun fact here, I actually own one of the 6 copies in existence that came from the same maker that Clown got his from. So it's the same mold, the same paint job, and from the same maker, which is pretty fucking rad, and he only did 6 other copies, so I own one of the 6. Definitely a cool concept, and I really wish we would have seen Clown wear this live, aside from just at the Grammys with that pink suit. But this mask was also used in some sort of drum advertisement. And last but not least, for Clown's Volume 3 list, we have the homemade Clown mask. Yes, this is the same one that I mentioned in the self-titled list, and here is where it's most infamously known. This was given to Clown during the self-titled era by a fan that made the mask himself, and as I mentioned earlier, it was seen on stage and worn by Clown during the self-titled era, but it's most prominently known for being used for some interviews during 2006. People still get tripped up about this mask, not thinking that it's actually Clown wearing it, but we can verify that this was used by Clown, not only during the self-titled era, but for this 2006 magazine interview as well. Alright guys, while normally I don't have many positive things to say about the All Hope Is Gone era, I hope that you guys are prepared for Clown's All Hope Is Gone era because we see a lot of different shit going on here. We see some old faces, we see some new faces, we see some new versions of some old faces. It's actually a pretty interesting era for Clown's masks, and I'm really excited to get on into the list. So, let's do that now. All Hope Is Gone. Alright guys, we're just gonna hop straight into this one and get some of the boring stuff out of the way, and what I mean by that is these goddamn promo purgatory potatoes. Our old big-headed friends, these big paper-mache masks that were used for some All Hope Is Gone promo material, as well as the psychosocial music video. Now, as I've said in every single other video, these basically represent the rock star slash egotistical big-headedness of Slipknot and how they were trying to basically burn that away. So it was definitely something new for Slipknot, probably the most different thing that they had done up until this point, right alongside the death masks of Volume 3, and that will bring us straight on into Clown's actual All Hope Is Gone mask, the Leather Clown. And while I absolutely despise this mask, I don't find it to be cool or fun to look at or anything like that, which I guess is the point. I do totally understand why Clown did this style of mask. He had recently gone through some hardships, and basically just didn't want to be bothered. He wanted to kind of trap himself inside of his own head, and I remember him talking about this specific mask design from start to finish and why everything was the way that it was. It was completely zipped up, so he didn't even have the option to talk to press. He was not wanting to do any sort of interviews or anything like that, and he originally had reflective lenses put in the eye holes. That way you couldn't even see his eyes. You could literally read nothing about Clown when he had this mask on.
I invent the evilest thing I possibly can put on my face. Constructed of leather, cop shades, a chrome Ming the Merciless hat. Put it all together, can't see shit, can't breathe, can't feel, can't do anything. Very painful. That was a personal pain. I lost my dad the album before and my mom the album before. And that's how I felt. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to do interviews. I just want to be in my own world and be reminded.
But as it went, we started to lose and shed some of those little details. So first up, we obviously have this debut version, which leads us into basically the same exact variant with a slightly shinier nose. And then we start to see some of those details disappearing, such as the eye lenses. Clearly they were removed on this copy, but there are some other changes as well. We've now got black stitching added to the mask and a faded red nose. Clearly seeing different colored noses, we start to see that there are multiple copies of this mask. We once again have the lenses on this mask, but we also have a copper colored nose rather than than a red nose or a silver nose. Next up, we see the copper nose mask again, but we now have no lenses. And the last variation we would see of this leather mask is a bright red nose with no lenses. And now we can get on into the good stuff, because I heavily believe that this mask is the most underrated, underappreciated Slipknot mask of all time. I remember when I first saw this, I thought, holy shit, Slipknot is back. My initial disappointment from Volume 3 and All Hope Is Gone, both with the masks and the music, were really starting to weigh on me pretty heavily. Once Volume 3 actually came out and I held the CD in my hands, I was looking at the masks and I just knew that they were drifting away from what made Slipknot Slipknot and what made me and so many other people fall in love with them back in the day. But this mask was my saving grace. This was clearly a store-bought mask that I had seen in many stores prior, but it was slightly altered by Clown to become something else. So in my opinion, this is definitely one of my favorite Slipknot masks, and it definitely brings back something that Slipknot didn't have for a while. This sort of homemade, crude, crafted, unlike any other thing you've ever seen before look, and we have a lot of variations to get through of this All Hope Is Gone female clown. So here first, we've got a clear female clown mask, and obviously Clown is wearing some sort of bondage hood to cover all of his hair. As you can see, this is a pretty stock version of that mask. We don't have any sort of special paint jobs going on. Even the teeth and the store-bought mouth cuts are left intact, but that quickly changes because now not only do we have the hood that was worn underneath the mask cut so that Clown's hair can be out freely, but we also start to see some weathering and damage around the mouth of this mask. This damage would continue until there was a rather large hole in the teeth of the mask, and almost all of the paint on the upper and bottom lips are gone. Now next up, we see a pink version of this mask. Aside from the pink paint job, we can also see that there has been a rather large breathing hole cut between the teeth and the bottom lip. And next up, we see the black variation of this mask. Once again, the inside has been painted black, but we also have a unique hand-cut breathing hole in the mouth. Now next up, last but not least, for these female clown masks, we have the skin tone version, which was worn at Sirius XM during an interview. This was after Paul Gray had passed away, and the All Hope Is Gone album seemed to have come to a complete stop. And obviously the difference with this one is that it is a skin tone mask, and this is a super, super creepy look. We can no longer see any sort of transparency. Obviously you can't see Clown's beard. There is no special cut going on, and Clown has yet another tight bondage hood on, which gives it just a really, really strange effect. I absolutely love this, and I remember freaking the fuck out when this interview came out because I just loved what I was seeing. We had an old school style jumpsuit, and we had this new creepy weird mask to look at, and it was just fucking awesome. And while this does conclude the female masks that are on this list, I am certain that there are other versions out there that we just haven't noted. I'm positive that at the rate that Clown had these masks made, there are some that he never wore, and there are probably some that he wore that just haven't been documented yet. So in the future, I am 100% positive that we are going to see some new and different variations surface. Now we're getting into the little memorial sub-cycle of the All Hope Is Gone era. This would be between the time that Slipknot started to play the Paul Gray memorial shows and the later shows like Knotfest 2012 and Monsters of Rock 2013. So first up, we have an original vintage vinyl West German clown mask. This was actually given to Clown from my buddy Connor. And just a fun fact about Connor, he is a stupid talented young artist. He actually sculpted the original House of Masks AJ Good mask. And he worked out a trade with Clown, who was going through a lot of us collectors trying to find one of these original vintage West German clowns. Connor was the one that was lucky enough to work out a deal with him, and I don't remember exactly what Connor got out of that deal, but Clown did wear his mask from time to time. Here we see it on the cover of a Kerrang magazine in 2011, and here we see the recast that was done from that vintage West German clown. This mask would serve as the Paul Gray Memorial Tour and Sonosphere 2011 mask. It definitely started out nice and pretty, but quickly weathered down, losing lots of hair and lots of paint, and also getting a very large split right under the chin and the neck area, which Clown covered with some sort of black adhesive bandage. Next, we see the same exact West German clown recast, but it has obviously been re-haired. We now have some sort of long hair, pretty similar to the orange hair that was used on a West German clown, but obviously longer. Clearly, the mask had been repainted, it had been fixed up, touched up, and had this hair added, and Clown would actually use this all the way through not only these memorial shows, but through the .5 cycle as well, so we will be seeing that one later. Next up, we see our good old pal, the Death Mask, and as I've mentioned prior, I do believe that these are different copies. They seem to be a little more translucent, and they have a slightly different paint job going on than the other ones that we saw in Volume 3. This was worn at the Mayhem 2012 meet and greet. We now see the Mayhem Clown, obviously heavily inspired by the Iowa Clown with some slight changes. Now first of all, this mask was silicone, whereas the Iowa Clowns were made out of foam latex. This mask also has a much longer neck, which Clown would tuck into his jumpsuit, and we see some slightly different details in the sculpt, such as pentagram plugs. Wow, edgy. We later see this mask worn again with no neck, and then we're right back to the vintage West German clown that I mentioned earlier in this All Hope Is Gone list. This was Connor's mask, and clearly you can see that there is a lot of wear and tear going on, and I'm I'm not sure if this was just from recasting it, if Clown made it look like this on purpose, or if it was just stored incredibly poorly. But I remember when this showed up at the Revolver Golden Gods Awards in 2013, we were all like, holy shit, Connor, there's your mask again. And last but not least, for this All Hope Is Gone list, we once again have the Tattoo the Earth clown mask. Clown said in an interview way back in the day that Tattoo the Earth clown mask was made just for the Tattoo the Earth and the World Domination Tour, and that we would never see it used again. Due to the mask being 13 years older than it was the last time it was used, it was pretty cool to see how the wear and tear and the weathering had affected the mask, and it was also cool to see it used during a different time in Slipknot. Back in the day, we just had to rely on whatever shitty pics or photos we could find, but this kind of changed a little bit because there were a lot more cameras, Slipknot was a lot bigger, and it was 13 years later where everything had kind of advanced a little bit. They were doing live streams of this, and it was just a whole thing, so I remember being blown away that Clown was sporting this mask again. Alright guys, we are to 0.5, which is supposedly going to be a big deal, but let's be realistic here. Clown had literally hundreds of variations of this mask because he used a new one every single night. And for anyone unfamiliar, basically what the concept was a very simple sketch off of Clown's likeness that was very open, basically a blank canvas that Clown could do something new on every single night based on the way he feels. Usually whenever I talk about this mask and this concept, I just insert this clip that I'm about to show you because I feel like it does a pretty good job at explaining what's going on.
The fight, the fuck, the hate, the love, it all goes into the making of a mask. As of the last 3 days, I feel like nothing, so nothing is exactly what you get, void of all color. Might as well be fucking space, because that's pretty much where I feel I'm at right now.
So with that being said, I am not going to be doing the 0.5 list in this video. It is literally impossible. Even if I only listed the ones that we do know about and that are on Nico's website, we would be here for an hour, just on this segment, easily. And then there's also the fact that new variations of this pop up all the time. It's not like a random Joey mask from 20 years ago that we happen to stumble across a new variant of every couple years. This is literally something people find constantly. So what I will do is just tell you guys to go over to the Slipknot History website and check them out for yourselves. They're all pretty self-explanatory. They don't have a crazy story with them or anything like that. It is literally just Clown expressing himself on a new mask every single night. And there are some very cool variations and some very not cool variations, and I'll let you guys go over there and take a look for them yourselves. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get on into We Are Not Your Kind. I'm sorry if that disappoints anybody, but I mean, think about it from a content creator perspective. There are many reasons not to jump on into that. So, with all that being said, I am going to talk about the base mask itself, and then I'll show you guys some other different variations of some West G's and stuff that we saw during the 0.5 era, and then we'll get into the We Are Not Your Kind era. So, I'm sorry if that disappoints anybody, I do apologize, but think about it from a content creator's standpoint. So, we can go ahead and jump on into this. This is the condensed 0.5 clown mask list. Alright, so first up on the 0.5 list we have the Debut Clown. This is the mask that you see in all of the promo shots as well as the Devil and I music video. Now the reason that I'm including this one in particular is because it was a separate mask than the one that he used when he started touring. This one was a slightly different sculpt, although extremely similar to the latter, and it also included a neck. By the time that Slipknot had started doing shows in support of this album cycle, they had realized that this mask did not work for Clown. I'm fairly certain after speaking to a friend of the maker of Clown's original mask that the mask just did not fit him correctly. You can definitely tell that it seems a little big, and Clown also wasn't a fan of the neck, so he started getting a slightly retooled version of this sculpt with no neck, and the masks seemed to fit Clown a little bit tighter, and he received these all in batches. Usually they would come just plain black plasti dipped, but other times, like this photo for example, we see them white with some red paint detail around the eyes and the mouth. So these black or white face masks would be the base mask for every single mask that Clown used for the 0.5 cycle that wasn't a West G recast variant. Sometimes he would wear these with absolutely nothing done to them, and other times they would be as extravagant as possible. Everything from new paint jobs to pantyhose, medical tubing, lots and lots of wigs, safety pins, etc. You name it, Clown probably used it on one of these masks during this album cycle. Some of them looked fantastic and other ones not so much. It's definitely one of the coolest concepts in Slipknot's mask history though. And now with those out of the way, we can move on to some of the other various masks that Clown used during the 0.5 cycle. First up, we have the red-nosed Iowa Clown, making an appearance outside of Clown's storage unit for a promotional video about Knotfest Japan 2014. This was especially cool to see because we hadn't seen Clown sport a real Iowa mask since Iowa, and this was one of the lesser used and more rare to see Iowa Clown variations. Clown also sported the Golden Gods 2013 vintage Clown mask yet again in the .5 cycle. He wore this to promote Slipknot's Scream Park event in an announcement video. And now we're going to take a look at some of the West German recast variations that Clown wore from time to time during the later portion of the .5 The Gray Chapter touring cycles. First up, we have a black and white variant that was very clearly inspired by one of my Clown projects. Some of the old school House of Masks fans might remember Nomad, who was the traveling clown mask. This was a West German clown that I sent around to dozens and dozens of different artists throughout the time period of a year, and I usually let them keep him for about 7 days and do whatever they wanted with him, and then they would send him to the next artist, and then so on and so forth. One of the very first paint jobs we got to see on that clown was extremely similar to this, and there is no doubt in any of our minds that Clown definitely took inspiration from the Nomad project. Next up, we have this weird, messy, multicolored version with an orange wig, and now we have the pink and black Quebec version, Quebec, however you guys say it, whatever. And here we have yet another long-haired clown mask. This one was slightly different than the one that we saw prior. There's no rip on the chin or anything like that, and we do have a slightly different paint job, along with slightly different hair. This hair is far redder than the orange hair that we saw on the last copy. Here we see the long-haired clown once again. Obviously that hair had been dyed or had some sort of dye in it that wore off very quickly, and you can see the red hair dye smeared all over the mask, giving it a very, very strange look. This weathering would continue into the .5 cycle as Clown wore this mask more often than most of the other West German variants, and we also see a massive split across the chin, which was stitched up. Now the last time that we would see this mask, the eye was actually ripped on the left side. As you can see, this mask looks like it has literally survived a fire. It is absolutely destroyed. Next we have a combination of two masks that we've already seen on this list, and that is a regular black .5 Clown mask with the black All Hope Is Gone female mask put over it. Clown wore this combination to the Knotfest meets Ozfest announcement slash press release thing, and I really dig the concept here, but there's just something about seeing Clown wear these cool masks with regular people clothes that just takes me right out of the moment. And the last mask on this list, although not in any sort of chronological order, is once again the Mayhem Clown mask. Now we got to see Clown commit suicide in the Devil and I music video wearing this mask, and it is the mask with the neck still attached. This, of course, was probably the most minute mask on the list, which is why it is saved for last. Holy fuck, we have one album cycle left. That is the We Are Not Your Kind album cycle, and I'm pretty sure that this is the longest video out of this series so far. And we didn't even count all the .5 masks on this list. Who would have saw that coming? I guess it's time to go ahead and wrap it up and hit the final album, and that is We Are Not Your Kind. Okay, so to kick off the We Are Not Your Kind Clown list, we have to go with this basic promo version. And one difference that you're going to notice about this copy right away is the fact that it doesn't have any sculpted in scars. This one has a very smooth finish, and although you can see some textures on the mask, they definitely aren't the deep carved in scars that you're going to see on the rest of these. Now this was just a basic silver version with a very plain red nose. Nothing too crazy going on, but as we move along, you'll start to see some different variations. Next up, we have one of the scarred masks, and this one actually has LED lights in the mask. I'm not sure if Clown just didn't like the effect that these gave, but he only wore this for a show or two, and then we never saw it again. Moving on, we have the basic scarred mask, and as you can see, it looks almost identical to the first mask that we showed, but clearly you can see that these scars are all pretty hardcore, and the other mask very faintly had anything on there. Next up, we have another scarred version with a black nose, a scarred version with a red neon nose, a black version with a red nose, a completely silver version, another non-scarred version with a slightly different shade of red on the nose, a completely clear version, and yeah, I guess I gotta count this one if I'm counting surgical masks. We have Clown with a knitted beard and a very strange headpiece. And there we have it, Clown's definitive Slipknot mask history. And believe it or not, even without counting all of the .5 masks, Clown still had more variations than any other member that we've done so far. And yes, that means Sid, Joey, and James all fell a little short in comparison to Clown's list. And now you guys know what time it is. Make sure to go ahead and let me know down below what your all-time favorite Clown mask is. Mine, of course, is the bald Tattoo the Earth Clown mask. I just fucking love that mask. There's a million reasons I could give you as to why that is my favorite, favorite from the time period that it was used. The Tattoo the Earth era was definitely my favorite Slipknot era. The sculpt itself, and so on and so forth. So make sure to let me know down below what your favorite clown mask is, and that is going to do it for this video. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. And until next time, this has been AJ Good at the House of Masks telling you to say no to drugs and alcohol, and we'll see you guys later.